Hi, I'm Nicole, and today I'm going to be joined by Rob King, who is the co-founder and CEO of Zedify. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. So just to start off, for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about Zedify and what you do.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Nicole. So Zedify is a system for doing deliveries in cities that are better. And by better, I mean better for our customers in terms of doing the deliveries the way they want and on time and all the rest of it. But also, I guess the bit that really drives me and all my team is doing deliveries that have a really big impact and make our cities better, reducing emissions, reducing congestion, etc. So I guess the problem that we see in the industry is where typically you've got a big warehouse miles outside of a city. Parcels get loaded up onto vans and trucks first thing in the morning, and those vans and trucks zoom along the motorway really nice and fast. And then as soon as they hit the city, they find they get stuck in traffic. Nobody really wants them there. They tend to be large, polluting, noisy, etc., and tend to be pretty inefficient. So really, our system is around utilizing micro hubs on the edge of those urban environments and using that as a gateway for deliveries coming into and out of the city. And therefore, we can kind of decouple that trunking element with the very specific nature of a city and how you move around the city. So when those parcels arrive at our hubs, we consolidate them going to the same areas, and we remode those to the most efficient and least impactful vehicles. And for us at the moment, those are mostly electric cargo bikes, large electric cargo bikes. They take probably about half the volume of the small van, but the way they work, they tend to do 2, 3, or 4 trips in a day. So they can actually carry as much as a small van, or even more than a small van. And obviously there's loads of benefits to customers by being really close to your consumer base. You can ensure that you're delivering on time. You can do narrower time windows. And with that short stem mileage, you're going around almost always full. So those rounds are only going out for maybe 3 or 4 hours a day rather than a big long 8 hours a day, and constantly doing collections and deliveries at the same time. So hopefully that's a reasonable summary of what we do.
No, lovely. And you mentioned that your main focus is to reduce carbon emissions. So could you go into a little bit more detail about what Zedify are doing to reduce those emissions?
Yeah, I guess it's worth pointing out that, our carbon emissions are incredibly low, in fact, negligible. So where we do have some emissions, I guess the first thing is pointing out those cargo bikes compared to even an electric van are around 90 to 95% more carbon efficient. So while electric vans can be really good for local air pollution, from a carbon perspective, the impact isn't that big. So making sure that we use the lightest, most carbon efficient vehicles is absolutely key. We also have control on the supply chain of those vehicles. So we actually manufacture the bikes ourselves, make sure that things like the batteries are used from a circular economy. So they're actually reused from cars, crash cars. And then the sort of tiny little bits of carbon, things like staff travel, where we obviously push for train and shared mobility. There's a bit of emissions coming from trunking as well. So stuff that arrives into our hubs, typically from partners, for example. These are third parties, so they're scope 3 emissions, but they can come into the hub. And what we're doing there is obviously trying to put some pressure on those companies to look at alternatives and try to decarbonize that part of it. So yeah, a variety of things, but we expect this year to be carbon positive, carbon negative, essentially, taking more carbon away. So the small little bit that we do produce, we're offsetting.
Brilliant. And arguably, every city needs to sort of take the stride that you're taking. Make smaller vehicles go around the city, cleaner, emissions. So, what would you say is the most influential factor driving last mile delivery, clean last mile delivery?
Well, I think the biggest driver comes from consumers themselves. So, and we're being told pretty loud and clearly, people on the street, people who are buying stuff, they want those deliveries to be clean. They want their local environment better. So I think that's the strongest argument, and we as the industry have got to respond to that. And I think largely are in very varying degrees. And that's really the opportunity where we come in. We can go and talk with partners and say, hey, look, we can not only provide this great service, but we can also support making sure those deliveries are less impactful. and creating value for the end consumer, so that that delivery that gets handed over is helping to improve their street rather than make it noisier or more polluting.
What would you say sets Zedify apart from other delivery providers like yourselves?
Well, I guess the impact is obviously a big thing, and really for us it's around communicating how big that impact is, even relative to electric vans. But the other thing, and obviously what our customers are most interested in, apart from the impact, is service. So making sure that service is really fantastic, and that isn't just the physical part of handing it over, delivery, making sure it's on time, but it's also that digital experience. So when we send out notifications, making sure they're sent out in a timely way, making sure that the actual delivery riders do turn up when they say they're going to turn up, because that's not always the case with all carriers. And then really talking to that part of it, the digital as well as the physical handover of goods, and making sure that service is really fantastic.
Brilliant. And lastly, and I guess most importantly, what are we going to see from Zedify in the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, lots of growth, certainly. We're planning around another 10 cities over the next year. So it's going to be an exciting time as we move into new territories, and obviously grow our existing customer base as well as we reach more and more people. So yeah, we're super excited about that. We're obviously, to ensure we are growing, just both territorially and with new clients, we're growing our other teams as well, and particularly around technology and making sure that that digital experience is really absolutely fantastic.
Well, good luck with that. And we are very excited to see you at Move in June.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Much appreciated.